All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that's sure to get people talking.
Oh, absolutely.
Islamic perspectives on alcohol.
Lots to unpack there.
We're going to be looking at some fascinating religious texts and commentaries, and I have a feeling this is going to go way beyond just, the simple rules and regulations.
I think you're right. It's really about going deeper, isn't it? It's about understanding not just what's said, but why it matters so much.
Exactly. It's about the why.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things get really interesting.
Absolutely.
Because it gives us insights into, faith and society and maybe even human nature itself.
You hit the nail on the head.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
One of the first things that struck me going through these texts was this phrase.
Oh, yeah.
Alcohol being called the mother of all evils.
That's a powerful image, isn't it?
I mean, talk about strong language.
Right. It is. It's strong language. And it really speaks to a deep concern within Islamic thought about the harms that can come from alcohol.
So it's not just about a casual drink here and there.
No, it's not about that at all. Even the Arabic word for alcohol, kam, it literally means to cover or to conceal. It's like a hint at the way alcohol can affect our minds.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about how it impacts a person on a fundamental level.
Yeah, it affects our reason, our judgment.
Right. And I'm thinking, how does that fit into the bigger picture? Like, what does that tell us about the Islamic worldview?
Well, in Islam, reason, free will, accountability for your actions, these are really important concepts.
Right.
Anything that messes with those things is taken very seriously.
Makes sense.
And you see this, in stories like the one about Caliph Umar, who, had a drunken outburst and ended up making a decision he really regretted later. So it's about the potential for alcohol to lead us down the wrong path,
Yeah, those negative consequences.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of impact, I noticed the sources don't just talk about, wine and beer. It's really about any intoxicating substance.
That's right. The focus isn't so much on the specific drink, but on the effect it has.
Right. So it's the effect that matters.
Right. And I think that's incredibly insightful. There's that saying in Arabic, what intoxicates a large amount, a small amount, is forbidden.
So it's like they were already thinking ahead.
Exactly. Thinking about the principle behind it.
Yeah.
And applying it broadly.
Wow. That makes you think about how relevant that is today, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, with all the different kinds of substances out there and even, behaviors that can lead to those altered states.
Right. It's fascinating how these ancient teachings speak to modern concerns about addiction and what it means to be in control of yourself.
It's like we're seeing these connections.
We are
Between the past and the present.
Definitely.
Speaking of connections, I was also really struck by that story, the anecdote about the pious man being tempted by a woman offering him alcohol.
Oh, yes.
Talk about a slippery slope.
It is. It's a story that's been told and retold for centuries. And I think it resonates because it touches on something so universal about human nature.
Yeah.
It's not just about temptation. It's about how one seemingly small choice can lead to a whole chain of events.
Not always good events.
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not. It can lead to consequences we never anticipated.
That really gets you thinking about how easily things can get out of control.
It does.
And the importance of being mindful even of those initial choices.
Exactly. And it's not just about the individual either.
Oh, right. The sources talk about the wider impact, right?
Yeah. The impact on the whole community.
So we're moving beyond just personal responsibility here.
Exactly. It's about social responsibility as well.
So how does that play out?
Well, the texts talk about family strife.
Okay.
Poverty, violence, even the breakdown of society as a whole.
Wow. It's like a domino effect.
It is. And it's really striking how these ancient concerns are still so relevant today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. Like, it's almost scary how much those ancient warnings still resonate today.
I know, right?
We're still dealing with drunk driving, domestic abuse, all the economic costs. It's like history repeating itself.
It is. But what's interesting to me is how the Islamic approach goes beyond just, condemning alcohol.
Okay.
But punishing those who are involved. There's a big emphasis on actually preventing these problems.
So it's like being proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Creating an environment that supports making healthy choices.
So it's not just about saying don't do this, but it's about actually making it easier to choose the right path. Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, think about those hadith that we see. The ones that talk about curses on everyone involved in the alcohol trade.
Right.
It's not just targeting the drinker. It's about, like, dismantling the whole system that makes alcohol accessible in the first place.
So it's like addressing the root cause.
Exactly.
Not just dealing with the symptoms after the fact.
Precisely.
That makes me think of the idea of, in joining good and forbidding evil.
Yes.
It's about taking responsibility, right? Not just for yourself, but for the community as a whole.
It's this idea of, working together to build a society where those harmful behaviors just don't have a chance to take root.
So individual choices matter, but so does the overall environment.
Yes. And that goes beyond, just laws and regulations.
Right.
It's about creating a culture where good choices are supported, temptation is minimized, and vulnerable people are protected.
It's like you're setting people up for success, creating the best possible conditions for them to flourish.
That's a great way to put it.
It reminds me of something else we saw in those sources, That emphasis on not just avoiding the bad, but actively pursuing the good.
Oh, absolutely. It's not enough to just, stay away from what's forbidden.
Right.
It's about filling your life with the things that are good and beneficial.
Like, what kind of things are we talking about?
Oh, seeking knowledge, strengthening relationships, contributing to your community, all those things.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Right.
The more good you bring into your life and the lives of others, the less space there is for the bad stuff.
Exactly.
And that kind of reminds me of what we talked about earlier, with the afterlife. Those who abstain from alcohol for the sake of God.
Yes.
Being rewarded with this special kind of wine in paradise.
That's a really interesting point. It shows how this idea of reward isn't just about avoiding punishment,
Yeah.
It's about actively striving for something better.
So by making the right choices, we're actually creating a more positive state of being, not just in this life, but in the next.
That's a really beautiful way to put it.
This whole discussion is really making me think about, the big picture, human nature, morality.
It is, isn't it?
What it actually means to live good life. It's amazing how these specific teachings on alcohol can open up these much larger questions.
It really is fascinating how interconnected everything is. But maybe we can shift gears a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We've been focusing a lot on the why behind the prohibition. I'm kind of curious to explore the how.
The how? What do you mean?
Well, like, how has this actually played out in history? How has this prohibition on alcohol shaped Muslim societies?
That's a great question. We've been talking about these lofty ideals and principles, but what's the real world impact?
Exactly. I mean, one thing we know is that historically, Muslim societies have had much lower rates of alcohol consumption.
Okay, yeah.
Compared to many other cultures. And that's had a ripple effect on all sorts of things.
Like, give me some examples.
Well, for one thing, Muslim scholars and physicians were really ahead of their time when it came to understanding the harmful effects of alcohol. And this knowledge wasn't just limited to, a few elite intellectuals.
Right.
It actually permeated society, influencing everything from social norms to urban planning.
So we're talking about a real tangible impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. For example, think about the traditional architecture of Islamic cities.
Okay.
Public spaces were often designed to encourage social interaction, community life, but without taverns or bars.
Interesting. So they were already thinking about creating environments that
that
discouraged alcohol use.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Think about Islamic finance, too.
Yeah, right.
Traditionally, it's been forbidden to invest in industries that produce or distribute alcohol.
That makes sense.
And that commitment to ethical economics, it's still relevant today. You see Islamic banking and finance thriving because they offer a way for people to invest their money in a way that aligns with their values.
So it's about this holistic approach, integrating your beliefs into all aspects of your life.
Exactly. It's not just about what you do or don't drink. It's about a whole way of life.
It really is impressive, the lasting legacy of these teachings. But even with such a clear prohibition, we can't ignore the fact that there's diversity of thought within Muslim communities today.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
When it comes to alcohol, there's not one single monolithic viewpoint.
We have to be careful not to oversimplify things.
Right.
There are varying interpretations, cultural influences, personal choices at play.
Right. So the core principles might be clear, But there's room for nuance,
Absolutely.
context, individual circumstances.
It's about understanding the spirit of the law,
Yeah,
not just the letter of the law.
exactly. All right, everyone, we're going to take a short break,
Sounds good.
but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to finish up this deep dive and leave you with some final thoughts. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have. It's amazing how this conversation about alcohol has touched on so many different things. History, urban planning,
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just about the drink itself, right?
Exactly.
It's about all these bigger ideas and how they connect.
It's like that analogy you used earlier.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah, exactly. Each piece we've looked at, each story, it's all part of this larger picture.
It is. And one of the most important parts of that picture, I think, is this idea of creating a truly flourishing society.
So it's about more than just avoiding alcohol.
Yeah. It's about building a world where people can thrive, both as individuals and as a community.
And that really seems to be rooted in a deep understanding of what it means to be human.
Right. I mean, the sources we've looked at, they talk about the inherent dignity of every person,
Yeah.
the importance of reason and free will.
Yeah.
But they also acknowledge that we're not perfect,
Yeah.
We make mistakes, we give in to temptation, we sometimes hurt ourselves and others.
So it's like we're trying to find that balance, right?
Exactly. Between our higher aspirations and our weaker impulses.
And these teachings offer guidance, I guess.
I do.
On how to navigate that, how to become better versions of ourselves.
And how to create a better world.
Yeah, too.
A more just and compassionate world.
I like that. And what's really interesting is, this isn't just for Muslims, right?
No, not at all.
There's a wisdom here that anyone can benefit from, regardless of their background.
It's about those universal values. Moderation, responsibility, compassion.
Things that anyone who's trying to live a meaningful life can relate to.
Right.
I think that's a great point to end on, actually. It's not just about avoiding a specific substance. It's about, embarking on this journey of self-discovery, figuring out what truly matters to you, and creating a life that reflects those values.
That's beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep growing.
And we'll see you all soon.